What's up, rockers, and welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify, and check out our webpage, www.talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, and today's guest is a really interesting story. You'll probably know him best for being the designer, illustrator, artist behind the Judas Priest album cover Firepower. That was Judas Priest's latest album, came out maybe a couple years ago, I guess. Anyway, it was a great album. It was well received. It went to the top of the charts all over the world. And this guy is responsible for the cover. And the story behind how he got the job is really interesting. That job and some others that he's done. So we'll talk to him in just a minute. Jason, he's done some artwork for you.
Yeah, the new Cassius King, which is a very recent project that you could call it a COVID project if you want, a lockdown project or whatever, but there's a story behind that as well. But yeah, when it came time for us to come up with some kind of imagery and, that fit the music, Claudio was one of the guys I had in mind, and I'm so happy with the outcome. And, that record comes out next week, and the album cover is already out there. People can just Google Cassius King, Claudio Bergamin, or you can go to claudiobergamin.com and check it out. But I think that we shouldn't waste any time and get into this. His story about how he met Richie, Richie Faulkner, before he was in Judas Priest. Yeah. While Claudio was living in London, he met Richie a few times, and then does this stuff with him later on, and Richie didn't remember meeting him. It's like comical, but actually came to fruition. Then now they work together all the time on possible future Judas Priest designs. Claudio designed that falcon on the back of Richie's Judas Priest stage gear. You're going to find out a lot of cool stuff from Mr. Claudio Bergamin.
Yeah, I don't think we shouldn't waste any more time. Let's get into it with Claudio.
Hello.
How are you, sir? Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Claudio is in the Bay Area, from what he tells me. Thank you for joining us today. I know that the connection here between you and Jason is you just recently did the album artwork for one of his latest projects, a band called Cassius King.
Yes, indeed.
And then from there, Jason told me a bit more about you, and it got really interesting. So let's just start with a quick story on how you and Jason connected, and we'll go from there.
We met in a convention type of event in Portland called Headbangers Con, and I think it was the first edition of that convention, right, Jason?
Yeah, and I want to just be clear. To me, it's either hit or miss with those types of conventions, but I absolutely love the idea of a convention for headbangers to go to. When you think about the KISS conventions, well, we all know that that's just going to be a room full of nerds freaking out about KISS shit. Sign me up, right?
Yeah, you say it like it's a bad thing.
No, I sign me up. I'm where's the punch? I'll drink the punch. Where is it? I'll take the shot, whatever I got to do. So sign me up for that. So I think I was a last minute addition to that. But I was so happy because what a convention of just people talking metal. Oh, I was so happy. And I didn't, just by name, Claudio, please forgive me, people might not know who you are.
No, I'm not that famous yet.
And I am.
I like how he qualifies that with yet.
And I am guilty of that. So
I'm what I like to call a micro celebrity. Micro.
I can dig it. So yeah. it was awesome to meet you once I realized your achievements and your accolades and your rise to at least where you are now. You were very kind to me, and that goes 1,000 miles for me. When headbangers meet each other, it's usually like, oh, you like Kiss?
It's funny how everything goes back to Kiss.
A lot of times it does.
Well, we've said this on the podcast numerous times. It seems like Kiss was the gateway for most of us. That was the band that turned us into lifetime rock and rollers. And as you can see from my background here, I'm 54 years old, and there's still Kiss stuff hanging up in my house.
Yeah,
same here.
Same.
Yeah.
My shrine is to my left.
I have to thank my wife for putting up with me. So
we all have to.
Yeah. So you made it.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, David. I'm going to throw you not under the bus, but put you on top of the bus here, so to speak. Metal Dave has interviewed Gene Simmons.
Wow.
Maybe more than once, but
wow.
I have to kind of like say this because you say you're thankful to your wife for putting up with you and putting you said to Gene, because I remember the interview, I've listened to the interview multiple times, and you said, you already know what I'm going to say, don't you? You said my wife still lets me put up Kiss posters, and Gene's reaction was, what do you mean lets you?
This is true. That's exactly it.
That's a little rough. Settle down, Gene.
Yeah.
It sounded like lets you. How dare her? Kind of.
Uncle Gene is that's what we call it in the Kiss Army. Uncle Gene is always a lot of fun to talk, and especially when he's in character. Because he has two sides to him.
Sure.
You have the private Gene, the business guy, which is I met that guy, and he's pretty down to earth. And then he has a character.
Yeah.
That annoys everybody that is not a Kiss fan.
Right.
Yeah. And some that are, Yeah. Yeah.
But
definitely.
Anyway, back to our meeting, it was awesome to meet you. I hope I'm able to say that this has, and it took a little while because, I kept your business card. I guess you were technically out of business cards, and you had.
No, I forgot them at home.
The postcard. You had the postcard with a piece of art, which we're definitely going to talk about. On one side, I don't want to give it away just yet. And you had your email address, and I hit you up when I needed an artist for this new project, Cassius King, and which, by the way, it came out amazing. It's anyone can go look up the new Cassius King record and see the art. It's already floating around online. The record comes out next week, and thank you for that. It came out amazing, and I hope I'm able to say that we are friends now.
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. I got that going for me. Yeah.
Yeah, Jason, I was over at Jason's house about, I don't know, a month ago or something like that, and he showed me the artwork on his phone before it was publicly unveiled or whatever. And I was looking at it and I thought, wow, that is really cool looking. And it reminded me, it has sort of to me, it had a Black Sabbath Master of Reality sort of vibe.
Well, the logos certainly do.
Yeah. But for those who are listening, Claudio, why don't you sort of describe the inspiration and the outcome and the final results? Tell people what we're talking about here.
Well, the inspiration came from Jason's idea. I mean, he already had the vision of this, guy that either escaped or was let go from a mental institution, and he was wandering around the local cemetery. And I immediately imagined this kind of vintage type of image, kind of not necessarily based on an album cover, but maybe a horror movie, an old horror poster from Hammer Films,
Right.
And then the logo, it's something I would have never done on my own, to be honest with you. Not that I don't like it. It's just a little outside what I usually do. I usually go for more square type of logos. but I love it. I mean, I like when people. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I kind of asked you to go psychedelic.
Yeah.
It needed to be moving, it needed to kind of be like this sort of like hippie jam thing.
Right.
It's got a wavy sort of image.
And also, which made me think, what was the original inspiration for that type of wavy logos? I think Black Sabbath got it from old horror movies. And
probably as early as 50s and 60s horror films.
They were kind of wavy and free-handed,
Correct.
know. So and also that remember that we talked about the Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea logo. It also had that wavy type of design.
Yeah, it's almost like in my mind, and I think that we talked about this, and you sort of like uncovered the actual process of how they would achieve that kind of lettering. But to me, just in layman's terms, it looks like, someone drew a logo and, spent time to get tight lines and everything of a logo and made it waterproof, or, laid it down underwater and then made ripples on the water and took a photograph of it, which is exactly what it, in my mind, is like, oh, that's cool. But honestly, that's you debunked that and said that's not how they do that, Jason, and then you told me how. But regardless, I love the way the logo came out. Yes, it's a kind of an homage, kind of a ripoff of what the Master of Reality logo is doing. But again, to be clear, once you start digging back in time as far as like the old original horror movie culture goes, you start to see this type of a font, if you will, of this kind of moving letters, right?
Well, in fact, if I remember correctly, a lot of Sabbath, the band, took a lot of inspiration from old horror movies.
They took their name from horror.
The name comes from a Boris Karloff movie, right? Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Right. And all of those 50s and early 60s movies had that kind of either kind of a freehand, a very bold type of logos, and that, which I love. And I actually have done some of that for some of the, the other side of my work, when I work with cryptozoologists and guys and, the Bigfoot explorers.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that. By the way, let me just raise the flag here for a second. Claudio is into some strange shit.
Aren't all artists?
And so am I. So this is really great that we get to hear he has literally touched, like, rubbed elbows with
Travis Walton,
people who have been abducted, Bigfoot researchers, sort of like, not necessarily the macabre, he hadn't like held the fang of Count Dracula or anything yet.
Not yet.
But it's going that route. So I think that, this is going to be a good episode. So let's go into how you did. So we've got a lunatic, here's my idea that we got a lunatic standing in where'd you get the graveyard, Claudio?
Oh, the graveyard is a photo shoot I did about 13 years ago in London. I was exploring the city while I was living there, and I was particularly interested in Gothic cemeteries, Victorian type of cemeteries with big mausoleums and statues and all of that. So everybody kept telling me, you have to go to Highgate. Where's that? And it's in West London. It was almost an hour trip from where I lived, all the way across the city. And then you get to this really nice kind of a secluded suburb of London, very traditional. And sure enough, like right in the middle of this just winding road, there's the cemetery that looked exactly like the horror Hammer movies. Whenever you watch that, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing going through this cemetery with vines and vegetation growing on the tombstones, and you say that can't be true. It is true. I mean, and you say, well, they don't have a caretaker that they would, cut the vines. They grow so fast. that it's very hard to keep the tombstones clean, So that's what,
Well,
anyway, the person.
Especially when they're that old. How old do you think some of those? How old is the cemetery?
Cemetery is at least 500 years old.
And
it's very, very old. Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually amazing that I pitched the art idea to you, and you're like, well, as a matter of fact, I have all of these photos from a cemetery and blah blah blah. Let's just put your lunatic in there. It's kind of actually working with you was super easy because of the things that you're already into. It was just a really good match. And the cover is great, and the idea, if I don't say so myself, actually really worked out well.
Yeah, and then the character is a friend of mine, and I photographed him by the pool in his house. So it was just a matter of cropping him and match the light of the existing picture. So
did you use a green screen or
no?
Oh, okay. You just
you do have to be mindful of the light direction, though.
Sure.
Because I mean, if the original picture, the light comes from the left, and then you have the character with the light coming from the right, then it won't match. So there has to be a certain amount of awareness of the light design and tone of the two pictures, so they would match.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Photoshop jobs on the internet that are not necessarily badly done in terms of Photoshop skills. Everything is well cropped, everything looks professional, but then they didn't pay attention to the lighting, and you can tell there's elements that don't match. Oh, I can see where they crop that, So that's kind of the biggest mistake I see on Photoshop work on the internet, like not paying attention to collecting the different photo elements,
So the fact that I only knew you prior to be an artist, an illustrator, and I want to get into like your earliest, how did you get into that? When did you start sketching? What was your influence? Were you, I mean, I'm going to guess movies and comic books from when you were a child.
And cartoons.
Cartoons. All right.
And Kiss.
Well, yeah, that's and Kiss. Right. So that is that's kind of, I don't like the word generic, but that seems like it would be common with the style that you have sort of, carved for yourself. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do, but it's been
the fact that you're a photographer and can also, manipulate, photography into and it's conceptually sound. I think that comes from how great. By the way, I love your art. I love your sketches. Your illustrations are incredible.
Thank you.
And you're paying attention to the lighting. You know where the lighting goes, but were you a photographer before you were an illustrator? I'm going to guess an illustrator.
No, it was the other way around. I was an illustrator before I became a photographer.
Oh, that's okay. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But it's obvious to me because I became an illustrator when I was 10. I just started really early, and in the 80s, mind you. Yeah. I was 10 in the mid 80s.
Okay, you're a young man.
Yeah, and so I was into all of the, in the 80s.
I feel the turn of the knife over here.
In the 80s were a very interesting time for cartoons. There was a massive wave of new, very cutting edge, new type of cartoons that didn't exist before. G.I. Joe, the Transformers, the Thundercats, Masters of the Universe. These were type of, I would call now avant-garde cartoons because they mixed classic fantasy art like Frazetta and Boris Vallejo into the cartoons. Basically, they took what it was already going on in the comic books and took it one step further in terms of the look of the technology, the design of the characters, and they took a lot from Japanese animation. Japanese animation were doing that in the 60s.
Oh yeah,
giant robots,
Power Rangers, Transformers, Speed Racer, all that shit. Yeah.
So
real quick, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but when you say 10 years old, you started to really figure out, this type of a thing. Where were you?
In Chile. I grew up in Valparaiso, Chile, in the coast of the Pacific Ocean.
Beautiful. I bet it's amazing there.
It's the topography is similar to San Francisco. A lot of people compare it to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And back then, cartoons were big. We had just 5 TV channels, and one of them it has a whole afternoon of cartoons. So every kid in the 80s, and every kid in Chile remember this to this day, that you would get home from school, and you would spend like the afternoon watching cartoons. And I remember it was a struggle for parents to get kids to do their homeworks, because it was a packed afternoon of Transformers, Speed Racer, all the Japanese mixed with the American cartoons. So, and I was like, and trying to draw as fast as I could to copy these cartoons. And then my dad got me a Betamax. So I started recording and press pause. And I started copying, just a G-Force. Remember G-Force?
Yeah.
G-Force, and those were my favorites. The Masters of the Universe, and some old cartoons that we got late. Even cartoons from the early 70s that got in Chile like 15 years later, like Majinga and Gundam and Voltus 5 and all those Transformers with swords, and some Japanese guy driving it. So a lot of inspiration came from that, which later in the story will translate into a Judas Priest album cover.
Hey, that's right.
Yeah.
Then, to answer your question, I was a cartoonist for a long time. I was trying to get into comic books back in Chile. But then when I went into art school in the 90s, art school either will propel you or ruin you. That's the way I see it, because it would turn you into a snob and make you think that whatever it is that you're doing already, it's not good enough for art.
Yeah.
There's a lot of snob mentality in the art world, Yeah. And I didn't want to go that way and just presenting an apple in an art gallery.
Right.
This is my art.
Right.
No, I wanted to do traditional art, illustration, painting, sculpture. So
that sounds like when you're a young kid and you hear, I don't know, Kiss, and you go, I want to do that, like for the rest of my life.
Right.
And your parents get you a cheap guitar and they sign you up for guitar lessons, and on day one they're showing you how to hold the pick, they're showing you how to hold the guitar, and in your head you're going, I already know how to hold the guitar and the pick. I'm a Kiss fan. Right?
I just jump and stick out my tongue.
It's the thing, right? Sure, but I understand that you have to learn chords. You have to learn what the guitar does. You have to figure out what the instrument can do and what it's supposed to do. But usually, a kid who's already like a rock and roll fan has these visions, and they want the quick jump to
You want to get there as soon as possible.
Well, they want to present their individuality, much like you don't want to paint an apple and go, there's my art. You, as a kid, you're already wanting to, hear a loud, crushing guitar chord like that blows your hair, that shakes the earth. And you can't get there on day one, and it's kind of a bummer. So a lot of people, I think, take a handful of guitar lessons, and then once they learn a couple of chords, they really end up holding up, solitude with their record player all summer long.
Yeah.
because that's what happened to me. And it sounds like, as far as like, I know, Claudio, you're a musician as well. So
Yeah.
I know that you understand exactly what I'm talking about, but it's also with your art as well. You already have vision. You go to school, you're in like an art college, you go to, it's like people who go to Berkeley Music School and they're learning about all this stuff, and they're learning about theory and how this, they're learning how to paint an apple.
It takes a stubborn mind and really being in love with what you like to maintain a balance of what you're learning, basically taking the best of what you're learning, and then dismiss what you think it might compromise what you already like, and
That's
just
right.
want to keep doing that because it's your individuality as a musician or as an artist.
Yeah.
You have to keep that core, I guess, quality of you as a creator, and not let the current trend in that particular school to just tamper with that. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. That's
So,
very well put.
so basically what I did was just dismiss what I thought it was nonsense and just snobism. Just keep the good teachings from there were certainly a few art teachers that I'm friends to this day that really shaped me in a good way. But there were some others that I couldn't stand. I just went through the motions to approve the courses, but I couldn't stand them. I thought they were snobs, just unbearable snobs, So I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll just approve this and just get over it,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you probably already saw your path on what you liked and the styles that you liked, because when you think about, I mean, some of your art, and we're gonna post some of your art as we talk about it. Everyone who is watching this on YouTube can see, or just go to your website, which we'll give you the website. We can give it now if they want to write it down. What's your website?
ClaudioBergamin.com. That's the one website. And then I have another one who's Bergamin. It's bergaminart.com. And that's my online store. That's where I sell all my prints.
So pay attention to the detail. Click on these photos of his art, these prints, and the detail is amazing. Your illustrations look like photographs, and your photographs look like illustrations.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it has come to that. It wasn't always like that.
Well, I didn't, like I said earlier, I didn't know you were a photographer. I just thought you were an illustrator, and I thought that my vision was going to be this illustration. And we had a little bit of they're called deadlines. Professionals have deadlines, and we had to get up to for the quality of work that we need and the time that we have, it's going to be photographs. And obviously I was fine with that. So let's move forward into some of the other things that or you want to talk about the obvious. How did you hook up with Judas Priest?
Yeah, and before we even go there, we should tell people that we're talking specifically about the Judas Priest album cover for the latest album, Firepower.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the last album Judas Priest released maybe 2 years ago now. Great album, by the way. And that is Claudio's artwork on the cover. So how did that happen?
It's actually a longer story.
You can start right now.
I met Richie Faulkner in London when I was living in London about 12 years ago, more than 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And he wasn't in Judas Priest at the time.
Right.
He was the guitar player in Laurence Harris band, which was
Steve Harris's daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I think he was either just quitting the band at that point or was already out of the band just recently. And I think he was playing in some other projects, but he was, what I do remember, that he was trying to get endorsement by Gibson. So he wanted to get an original guitar, an original Gibson guitar, custom made. based on certain designs. So he said, "Hey, dude, can you do some guitar designs for me?" Mind you, I'm not a luthier kind of, by any means. Right. What I did was just grab a picture of a Les Paul and just start painting on top to make it look in a certain way, you know. And I did that with a Les Paul and a Flying V. So I did some crazy designs with, you know, mixing materials, metal mirrors, and different type of things to make the guitar look cool, you know, and metal, right? So that was the first job I ever did for him. And this is the funny part of the story. We met a few times, not many, probably 2 or 3 times that we met in London.
This is pre-mention of Judas Priest.
He
doesn't know anyone in Judas Priest, right?
No, this is mid 2008. I was working in London.
Surely he had met Lauren's dad.
Sorry?
Surely he had met Lauren Harris's dad.
Well, he actually lived in one of Steve's houses in London.
Oh, okay. So
he shared. I think the story goes that he shared.
My landlord is the bass player for Iron.
Right. Right, and he. I think Steve's had several properties around London, and he was sharing. I'm sorry.
If you don't pay up, they send Eddie over.
Yeah. With an axe. I think he was sharing one of those flats with Michael Kenny, he is also my friend. He is the bass tech, Steve's bass tech, and also keyboard player, you know, behind the stage for Iron Maiden.
And so he's actually a member of Iron Maiden as well.
Yeah. So anyway, I met Richie just a couple of times, not many. We weren't hanging out all the time. It wasn't like that. So then I moved back to Chile, right, in the mid 2009, late 2009, and Richie reached out to me in social media. I think it was Facebook, like a couple of years later. And I said, "Hey, Richie, how are you?" And he didn't remember who I was.
What?
I thought he was reaching out because he remembered me, that I was a photographer and an illustrator. But I said, "Should I do this?" But then that conversation came later, like a couple of weeks later. And I said, "Remember that time in London?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" We met before. And he was, "Really?" I don't know. So, and then I got a job with Rob. Look, what I'm trying to say with this story is none of the Judas Priest connection are connected to each other. They're all pure fucking coincidence. I met Richie, and then he reached out to me by coincidence because he didn't remember me. And then I got a job with Rob Halford.
This is Twilight. Hold on, this is Twilight Zone shit.
Yeah.
It's like you do not remember me.
So why was he reaching out to you if he didn't remember you? Was it just
he saw my artwork on Facebook, he liked it, and he
Okay.
Nothing related to us meeting before.
Okay, gotcha.
Or the guitar designs he asked you to do.
Right.
Okay. Right. So no. Wait. You're getting ahead of the story. The guitar designs were done when he reached out to me.
Oh, okay. All right.
Gotcha.
So what I meant was from the moment we met in person to the moment he reached out to me, he didn't remember we already met. That's what I meant, you know?
Okay.
So, and then just a little bit before this, I got a job from Rob. At the time, he was releasing a solo record, and then he released a live album, live at the Saitama Arena. Okay.
Okay.
So his manager reached out.
What version of Rob's band is this?
Sorry?
What version of Rob Halford's band is this? Is it 2? Is it Halford? Is it Fight?
No, Fight and 2 hadn't existed for like 15 years at that point.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Just getting some timeline. This is Halford.
Halford was the only active band he had at the time, and I think he's still active with that band.
Is the live? It's not Live Resurrection, is it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Live. Funny enough, that's another weird connection. Have you seen the Live Resurrection album cover?
Yeah. I have it.
It's Rob holding a flag. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
That's the Chilean flag, and I'm in that audience. In that picture.
Wow, that is awesome.
You were destined to get this job.
Yeah.
So tell us one more time, what album covers did you do for Halford? You did a lot.
Wait. Yeah, well, we need to go through the timeline for this.
Okay.
So around the same time I was doing this job for Richie, and before he joined Judas Priest, I did this job for Rob. I think it was a few months before he joined Judas Priest, right? And his manager at the time reached out to me, a guy named John Baxter, who later on got into some legal disagreements with Rob.
I read about that in Rob's book.
Yeah, I don't want to talk shit about people, but he was kind of an odd guy. You know, he was odd. It was an odd job. He asked me to do the sci-fi illustration for the album cover, which I did. And I sent him sketches and advances. You know how it works. You know, there's no surprises with what I do. I usually keep the client informed of what I'm doing. But then just when I finished this fucking very intricate, complex illustration, he changed his mind. And he said, you know what, we're not sure anymore. It looks too cartoonish. We want something simpler. I said, fine, what do you want? And to their credit, they still paid me what we agreed. And they give me even a little bit more for the extra illustration. And the illustration was very simple. I just took a part of the illustration, the cover, a part of the illustration and overimposed it in a live photo of Rob, right? It's a cool cover, but it's nothing special. And it took me this percentage of the time that it took me to do the other illustration. So I was kind of disappointed because whenever you do a job, any type of job, you expect that the job speaks by itself and gets you more jobs because it's good.
Yeah.
This other cover, the second one, nobody's going to call me because of that. It's very unimpressive, you know? Okay. So.
And again, it's Dave's question, just again, regurgitated. What live album cover are we talking about?
It's called Live at the Saitama Super Arena. It came out in 2011, I think.
I don't think I have that.
It's an album and DVD.
Okay.
It's recorded on an arena, a big kind of a state-of-the-art, very modern-looking arena, you know, in Saitama, in Japan.
Okay.
And it came out great. They paid me. Be done with it. And then a few months later, Richie joins Judas Priest, right? And mind you, while all of this was unfolding, I was working with Richie, either with designs for the guitars or I remember I got a text from him one day and he said, dude, they're making my outfit for Judas Priest and I need something to put in the outfit. So I designed a little eagle, kind of falcon type of thing to put on the back of his kind of vest, leather vest.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
And I designed that too.
Wow.
So I was already collaborating with the band into some capacity. And Richie, to his credit, he always tried to push me into the Judas Priest camp. You know, my friend can do this. And but he's a new guy. He's half the age of the other guys.
Right.
So I'm sure whatever he proposed, he'd taken with a grain of salt. Oh, yeah.
Get out of here, kid. Go practice. Yeah.
And then to his credit, again, he grew from that to becoming an equal to all of those guys. And now he's like as involved and his opinions is as evaluated as Rob's or Glenn, and it's a credit to his intellect. He's a very bright, very smart, very perceptive type of person. He knows exactly where to go, what to say, and what to propose. Either musically, graphically, is a great guy to work with. He has great ideas, and what it's most important of all, he understands Judas Priest. Because he's also a fan, you know? So he knows what the fans want and are expecting. So I would say he keeps I wouldn't say I have to, pick my words carefully here. He knows what to propose to keep the band in a certain train, in a certain role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And when the time came to do his first record with the band, Redeemer of Souls, he called me, and I actually proposed ideas for that record. But I guess they weren't ready yet to go back to the metal creatures, the robots, the Transformers, because basically that's what they did in the 80s.
Yeah.
Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith are Transformers. That's what they are, you know.
Yeah.
It's based on Japanese animation, you know, and so I wanted to go back to that, because if you look at the Mark Wilkinson's album covers, the other guy, the guy who's been doing the covers from Ram It Down on,
okay,
he is more into Sad Winds of Destiny. That's what he likes. He likes the winged creatures, kind of the angels, the fallen angels.
Yeah,
I like that. But to me, Judas Priest is metal creatures, robots, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to go back to that. So what I proposed for Redeemer of Souls, which at the time, the working title was Metalizer. Isn't that metal? Metalizer. So I went back to one of my favorite Priest album covers, which is Killing Machine. You know, that face with the glasses.
Yep.
And they turned that cover into
Hellbent for Leather, known by most.
In America, it's called Hellbent.
America's Hellbent for Leather, and in
correct. Killing Machine.
Killing Machine.
Yeah, but it's the same image with the shattered glasses and the helmet, and yeah.
Right. So I turned that cover into a robot face, like a Transformer face.
Ooh.
Very intricate, with a lot of details, you know, joints and moving parts, and I did three different, very different robot faces. And Richie loved them. He said, if they don't go with this, I don't know what they will go with. You know? So I proposed them, didn't hear from him in like a week. And then he told me, they didn't go with it. They want to go with the other guy's proposal. And I said, well, it must be really good then. It turned out it was something very similar to what they did before. So that's what happened with a lot of bands, classic bands.
Yeah.
Mind you, the cover he did is great. It's really well done. Mark is a master of what he does.
Yeah.
But what I got from the experience was that they weren't willing to change yet, to try something new and different. You know, they were fine with that. Basically, they were going through the motions and just not necessarily repeating, but going into just one line, right?
Comfort zone.
Right, comfort zone, exactly. And which I get it. I mean, it's a fine line when you have a 50-year-old band. It's a fine line with experimentation and just keeping what the fans are waiting for.
Yeah.
You know? Then you got The Elder or Nostradamus, you know, right? So it just deviates too far from the trail, you know.
The experimental,
right?
The experimental.
It's a fine line, especially for a band like Judas Priest, you know.
Sure.
So when the time came for Firepower, I think they went to Mark first before me, because that's what they do. I mean, they've been working with the guy for 30 years. So I get it, you know. But apparently they didn't like what he proposed. And mind you, I've never seen that proposal, ever. Nobody has ever shown it to me. And Richie described it to me kind of, and I said, and I can imagine it kind of looks like the previous album cover. You know? So, and I said, I'm gonna put all my chips in just one proposal. And and I have to give credit where credit's due. Richie was texting me like every 15 minutes, like throughout that weekend. Hey, you have to include this, and he would send me pictures of Japanese robots and video game art, you know. And I was like,
he was
processing everything.
He was maybe being suggestive research.
Yeah, no, well, this idea, Firepower, is 50% Richie's too.
Yeah, okay.
what I did was just grabbing everything from the ether. He was like throwing ideas all over the place, and I was just grabbing and put it all together. And this was a Friday, if I remember correctly. I got a message from him. He said they didn't like Mark's proposal. Propose something fast, like quickly.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, So this was a Friday. I went all the way from Saturday to Sunday smoking weed and just sketching, and I did all the sketches on paper. I wanted to go old school with this. And then I got a sketch I was happy with on Sunday evening. Put color on it, proposed it on Monday morning, and it was approved by Monday evening.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's in a matter of hours.
Wow.
It's not, and if you look at that sketch, it's the cover, but rough. It's the same cover, but it's just pencil and quick doodles, but it's the same cover. I mean, it didn't change much. It was just refined for the final version,
Right.
So is it fair to say that's easily your most widely recognized piece of art at this point so far?
Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, you don't get much bigger than a Judas Priest album cover. Holy smokes. And especially an album that, I'm a big Judas Priest fan. So is Jason. And that album, I think, is a great, great record. So not only is your artwork featured on a Judas Priest album, it's also featured on a Judas Priest album that in a lot of respects was viewed as sort of a bit of a comeback for them. So it was getting all kinds of press and rave reviews and everything. So you're attached to something that not only is a legacy brand name, but is considered to be, one of their better pieces of work in recent years. So that's huge. It
is. And they are aware of that. I mean, they are aware of how praised the album is. It went to #1 in the first week.
Yeah.
And I think it was a cosmic conjunction of elements, because it was not only the album cover that fit right in, but also the production of the record. They went back to work with Tom Allen, the guy who produced all the records in the 80s.
Yeah.
But they kept what's his name?
Andy Sneap.
They kept Andy.
Yeah.
Because Tom, I guess what they wanted from Tom is the understanding of the tradition of Judas Priest, the classic sound. But Andy, he has the modern touch. So he makes the record sound up to today's standards. That's his skill. He knows how to do that. He has worked with Testament and Accept and a bunch of new metal bands. So he knows how to make the record sound tight, not too compressed, because that's what I like of his production. I don't like when things are compressed and just one line of, I like to listen to everything separately, and that's what he does. He does it really well.
So you were saying earlier in the conversation that when you take a certain amount of pride, as I can understand, you take a certain amount of pride in your artwork being accepted and recognized, but one of the benefits of that, of course, is then it leads to future jobs. So here you are with the album cover for a Judas Priest album that by all measures was considered a smashing success. Mm-hmm. So have they been back in touch with you for the next album yet?
Well, I can't go there because it's everything is in the motions right now.
Okay. I'll take that as a yes.
I can't say anything, but even if I propose ideas, that doesn't mean they will go with my ideas, because they're still working with Mark,
Right.
For instance, did you see that a couple of days ago? A big box set came out for 50 years of Judas Priest. Did you see that?
I heard that they were putting something out. I don't think I've seen it, though.
It's a big box with all of the records and posters and a book and
a coworker of mine has it, and he's just like, he took a snapshot of it, and the photo doesn't do it justice. He's like, it's the Holy Mother. It's like you start opening this, it's like 3 hours later you get to the bottom,
Right. Well, the packaging was designed by Mark. So it's still
They're still
there
working with
attaching
you.
to the band. So it's just we're sharing that opportunity. But yeah, I mean, it's everything is up in the air right now because I mean they haven't go back to the studio in several months. So
Yeah. So as an artist and also a metal musician and a fan of heavy metal, who are some of the artists that you look up to or that inspire you in terms of album artwork? Are there standout bands or album covers that?
yeah, certainly. The first one undoubtedly was Derek Riggs.
Yeah,
Um,
Iron Maiden.
it was the first artist that I was aware of his name, right?
Yeah.
Because probably before Derek, I was drawn to a lot of album covers, but didn't know who made them, and
Right.
and then they were all over the place. For instance, I remember one of the earliest album covers that made an impact on me when I was very young. I was like probably 7 or 8. Was the News of the World album cover by Queen, yeah, which is done by an artist called Frank Kelly Freeze, and he was I think it was an original illustration he did for a sci-fi magazine in the 50s or 60s, which Roger Taylor asked him to rework for Queen,
Right.
and that was one of my earliest memories of being stunned by an album cover. So what is this? And he's also holding the band in his hand. So it was very mythical, if you want to call it somewhere, because it was an illustration, but it has the band members on the illustration. So that made my imagination.
It's a gatefold. You open it up and there's a hole in the roof of
That's the gatefold, yeah.
Auditorium there's a hole in the roof, and it shows people bug-eyed, like running for their lives, and he's reaching down and grabbing the band off the stage. Incredible moment. And
yeah.
That record blew my mind I think I got that when I was about 10.
Yeah. So that was one of the earliest album covers that really made an impact on me. And then there were others I were familiar with that I really liked, like the Journey album covers with the Scarab, and but then the Kiss album covers too. Some of them are great. Destroyer, Love Gun.
Yeah.
But then when I first saw, and this was the album that just came out when I just started getting into rock music, was Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden.
Oh yeah.
And that was a game changer. I was like, whoa, what is this? I've never seen an album cover like this. It was just so original and bold and well done technically. So yeah, a lot of factors combined in one album cover. It was creative. It was mind-blowing in terms of the technical skills. And I had to get this record and see what it's all about, And then that led me into, it was right about the time I was discovering heavier music, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. So Derek was certainly the first one. And then I started to discover other artists like, Storm Thorgerson, who did all the Pink Floyd album covers. Yeah. Rainbow album cover, Scorpions album cover. So I realized he was the same guy.
Yeah.
Who did the Blackout album cover. Sorry, not the Blackout, but the Animal Magnetism and Love Drive. Same guy as the Pink Floyd album covers.
Yeah.
And then I discovered Hugh Syme. He does the Rush album covers. Mm-hmm. So this all unfolded when I went into this rabbit hole that Derek got me into. And then when I met Derek years later, I said, you know what, this is all your fault,
Where did you meet him?
Another interesting story. When I came to the States for the second time, I stayed at my friend Michael's place in Los Angeles. Michael Kenny is a keyboard player and bass tech for Steve.
Uh-huh.
So he knew Derek, because they when Maiden was recording all those awesome records, Peace of Mind, Power Slave, they were recording those albums in the Bahamas,
Right.
In Nassau. So unlike any other band, because Iron Maiden is not a regular band, they don't do anything regular. They took all their crew to the Bahamas, roadies, even the artists. They took Derek to the Bahamas, and he was painting those album covers in the Bahamas. They were all standing in the same compound, Nassau. So, and I think Michael was sharing a bungalow with Derek while he was painting Peace of Mind, Power Slave, and Somewhere in Time,
Holy
So
What?
He got to see shit fall out of his brain onto pages.
Right. So I remember one of the stories was when you go to Michael's house, it's like an Iron Maiden shrine because he has the gold records on the wall, and it's a tiny place. And everything is like stuck together, And he has like Steve basses and gold album awards and this is the crazy part. He has like I don't even know what to call it. It's like a giant palm tree of backstage passes all the way from the 70s to now, like this fat of backstage passes, and in the middle there's like classic one, like Peace of Mind, Power Slave passes. Like, I was like out of my mind, And one of the things he has in his place is the original discarded Peace of Mind album cover, the actual painting,
Wow.
which is not finished because Derek was painting it, and Steve and Rod walked in, and he said, "You know what? We don't like the fact that Eddie is on his knees. It's the same cover. The only difference, as opposed to Eddie like crouching, he's on his knees."
Wow.
So they didn't like that. So, mind you, this is way before Photoshop. Everything was done in an artboard on gouache painting, right?
Yeah.
We have to start over.
Yeah.
You can't paint on top,
Right.
So he did the album cover, everybody knows, right? And then the other painting was like just lying on the floor, and Michael was like, "What are you doing with this?" And Derek, "What, do you want it?" "Sure." So he took it home, still has it. People has offered him 6 figures for that painting.
I believe it.
God, that's crazy.
So, and I have a picture. I'll send you a picture so you can overimpose it here. I have a picture of the painting. So, and I said one day while I was staying at his place, I said,
people, an exclusive.
So I said, are you still in touch with Derek? And he said, "Yeah, every now and then." "Can you take me to his place?" Begging me, "Please take me to see Derek Riggs."
Yeah.
So we drove to Southern California. That's where he lives. He lives in Orange County. So he took me there. I tried to behave, not to be too much of a fanboy.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. I mean, I was like biting my lip not to make all kinds of annoying questions about the album covers. But now we're friends, and actually, we wouldn't have met Jason if it wasn't for Derek Riggs, because he invited me to Headbangers Con.
Really? Oh, that's right, because he was there. He was one of the guests.
He was there, and he said, "Oh, you have to, but if you want me, you have to take my friend Claudio too." Really? They actually say that.
Oh, he said that.
Yeah. Well, not him, his wife, but his wife is his manager, right?
Yeah.
So they pushed my name so I'd be in that convention. So if it wasn't for Iron Maiden and Derek Riggs, we wouldn't have met Jason.
Amazing.
Wow.
So I met Derek Riggs at the Whiskey A Go-Go, a long time ago, maybe 2010 or 11. I can't really remember. I was doing a benefit concert for a friend of mine who passed away, Michelle Meldrum, who was at one point a member of a band called Phantom Blue, which contained current members of the Iron Maidens, who
Ah,
are friends with Derek Riggs. Now,
yeah.
Tommy Pond's the Dangerous Toy, and I met him I met Derek Riggs. He was there hanging out because he knows the Iron Maidens, Phantom Blue, and it was family night at the whiskey. It was a celebration of Michelle's life, and I was flown out to perform some songs. Basically, with the Iron Maidens, they learned. I did a couple of old Paul Di'Anno songs with them, Wrathchild and something else, and they learned "Scared," the Dangerous Toys song, and sang "Scared" with the Iron Maidens.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really special.
Wow.
And I had known Linda McDonald, the drummer. I met her at Michelle's house in like the mid '80s.
She played in another band, another girls band in the 80s, right? Well, what's the name of that band?
If it wasn't Phantom Blue, I'm not quite sure what it.
I think that's what it was. It was an all-female band, right?
Yeah, Phantom Blue. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the band I'm talking about. Okay, so Tommy Pons met Derek Riggs a couple of times, and at one point he took my first Iron Maiden cover with him and had it signed, and then brought it back to me. And you can see Derek Riggs. To Jason, all the best, Derek Riggs, and I love it that he put the little symbol that he puts on
Yeah.
artwork.
That's his signature.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then here,
If you look at it, it's a D and an R opposite.
yes,
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
yeah, it is. But he did write his name too, which I'm glad he did because, yeah.
Yeah.
And then years later, right around the time that it was actually Paul Di'Anno was doing a solo tour, and this would have been in 2010, I think. I met my wife for the first time at this Paul Di'Anno show. It was in January of 2010, I believe. I have the set list, has the date on it, and I had Paul Di'Anno signed. So I only have Paul Di'Anno and Derek Riggs. I only have Paul Di'Anno and Derek Riggs on the. I'm so bummed not that I only have.
And you raised the value of that record for like 1,000%.
Maybe so.
I have the first one, Killers and Made in Japan, all signed by Paul Di'Anno, but no
You're
Derek
winning.
Riggs.
You're kind of winning there. No
Yeah,
Derek
but
Riggs.
I probably actually devalued him because I insist that they all sign it to Dave.
Oh,
So
right.
it says to Dave, Paul Di'Anno, or it says to Dave, and he signs all of them with cheers, Paul Di'Anno.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So Claudio, if you could design or illustrate an album cover for any band in the world, which band would you choose?
Good question.
It's not that hard to imagine which
No.
one it is. Although Jason might be thinking on a
No,
different
I'm not. I'm wide open. I'm trying to not make any assumptions.
I'm going to take two guesses, and here's my guesses and the reasons why. I'm going to guess number one, Iron Maiden, just because of the legacy of Derek Riggs and their awesome artwork, and
Yeah.
number two, I'm going to guess, for not necessarily for artistic reasons, but for commercial reasons, Metallica, because there's just not a bigger metal band on the planet. So am I right on either one of those?
You're not wrong, but Metallica has never been one of my aspirations. One, because I know they haven't done an illustration on their album covers in a long time. Like the last one was in 1989. And I don't see them putting an illustration anytime soon on any of the album covers. So there's a certain factor of realism that,
okay.
But Iron Maiden, that's it's not only my style would not only match what they like, but it's also a possibility because I know people, but it hasn't happened yet. And it's not because they haven't seen my work, because I know they have.
Yeah.
It's just because Iron Maiden is huge. It's a big company. So they work with not one guy anymore. Now, in the 80s, it was only Derek.
Right.
He was the only one doing all of these fantastic illustrations, and they have them on the payroll. I mean, it was almost another employee of the company. I don't think that was the deal, but it manifested like that, right? He was always working for Iron Maiden. like full time.
Well, he was
Now
doing
we have,
T-shirt designs for the tour. You know, different markets they would have a new T-shirt. That's Derek Riggs.
and not only T-shirts, he did posters,
Right.
Christmas cards, tour books. I mean, for each album, you have like 15 illustrations. You know, it was crazy. So he was working all the time. Nowadays, they work with advertising companies. They have several artists doing different things. They have one artist doing the pinball machine, another artist doing the comic book, another artist does the video, another artist does the album cover. Then they had a separate guy to do a single. So I think he has grown into this big monster, and just one artist getting there is very hard because you have to go through a secretary, the secretary of the secretary of Rod Smallwood, and then you will get to Rod Smallwood. So it's hard. I know Michael has pushed my work into, I know Steve has seen it, but beyond that, I don't know. But Iron Maiden would be great.
Yeah. Well, everybody's seen your work at this point, man. I mean, what an honor to have your work featured on a Judas Priest record. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And even if I don't do another cover, I'm just very happy that I did that one. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
So Claudio will explain further and fill in the gaps here. A lot of Claudio's art, seemingly a lot, is a lot of UFO and Bigfoot stuff. And I'll just, for lack of a better word, Claudio, excuse me, I'm going to say the phenomenon of each, as well as more things. Claudio might be into some weird shit. To me, Bigfoot is not weird.
Well, I like to call it high strangeness.
Ooh, I like that. Is that the name of your new doom metal band?
I was going to say
High Strangeness.
An album title.
Yeah, that's really good. Anyway, so Claudio has gone to these sort of, excuse me if I say it wrong, alien conventions, or where people who have a story, like Travis Walton, who was apparently abducted, and a Hollywood adaptation of his story was made for it in the 90s called Fire in the Sky. There's a book version that Travis probably wrote with a writer. And
no, he wrote it himself. Yeah, that was interesting. I've always been fascinated with high strangeness and paranormal phenomena and cryptozoology and ufology. There you go. All the terms in once.
I love it. Well, so, and it shows in your artwork, which is kind of why you're here on Talk Louder today. So let's keep it within your realm, but as reasons why you need to explain, because Dave hasn't seen these prints yet, but I want you to start with Travis Walton and the prints that
I need to go back. I need to go back a little bit before that. When I was a kid, along with cartoons and science fiction movies, I was fascinated with all of these topics. And I remember a particular show I used to watch when I was a kid called In Search Of, with Leonard Nimoy. Remember that show?
Yeah.
And he had each episode, each episode had a different topic, right? One would be about Bigfoot, the other one would be about UFOs, another one would be about ghosts, the Loch Ness Monster. Yeah. So I was fascinated with these kind of shows. You know, I also loved Cosmos with Carl Sagan back in the 80s. Those were some of my favorite shows when I was a kid. So I was always into it. Now, fast forward in the story, like to as recent as 5 years ago.
Okay.
I decided to tackle this subject in art form, which, mind you, I've never done before. Even with all my previous commissions, never ever done one piece in this subject matter. It all started in 2015.
I need to interrupt. I'm so extremely happy that you did, because the shit came out awesome.
Yeah.
It looks great. And fast forward, because the story about you meeting Travis and everything, and how this kind of steamrolled is awesome.
So I had in the back of my mind for a couple of years before that, like from 2014, doing some art for this subject, right? But there's so much that you have to pick and choose what to do, right? So you have to pick the cases that stand out, right? So the first one I ever did was Bigfoot, and I wanted to do the ultimate Bigfoot, is what I call it. I mean, the illustrations, everybody wants to see
Bigfoot. People want to see Bigfoot.
Yeah. So I did a full body shot of Bigfoot walking towards the camera in the middle of the redwood forest, okay. Like Northern California. Yeah. So I wanted to convey, a summer warm type of light with heavy, thick vegetation around him, but you can tell is the Northwest, it's redwoods or, any national park. And, but I didn't want to show him too much. So I had part of his body is covered in shadows. You can see some of it. So I wanted to keep it mysterious, and that illustration was done. I did it on my own. Nobody commissioned it. So I did it on my spare time, posted it on social media with no pretensions of anything, just sharing my interest. I thought people were going to...
check out my Bigfoot.
Yeah, I thought people were going to laugh. Some people laughed, from old friends,
Mm-hmm.
But this thing exploded.
Of course,
it got shared in every fucking Bigfoot website in the internet.
Does not surprise me at all.
Wow.
And that got me to jobs right away with people I've seen in documentaries. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, another rabbit hole I went into.
Yeah.
So, and then my second project, which I did also on my own, nobody commissioned it. A couple of months later, I did Fire in the Sky. But I wanted to do it. I loved the movie when it came out. I went to the movie theater to see it, actually.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I was always aware that it wasn't true to what really happened, but I wasn't sure exactly what were the true events. So I started reading interviews with Travis, watching his appearances in several conventions, just heard the case from his mouth, right? Yeah. And I realized there were several very important differences between the movie and what actually happened. So I said, you know what?
There was some embellishment by Hollywood.
Well, yeah, they wanted to do a horror movie.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They wanted to do a horror movie, and Travis' real experience wasn't horrifying enough for Hollywood. So they added certain stuff to make it more horror-like, right? And this is a funny part.
When the actor shows up after he had been missing, he looks horrified. He looks like shit.
That's true.
Oh, so the actor, I think D.B. Cooper was the guy.
D.B. Sweeney.
Sweeney, thank you. Comes back in. He's looking for a payphone. He just looks like he's been.
All that is true. Yeah, all that happened.
He's fucked up. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All that is true. What's different? Everything that you see in the movie, it's true. It actually happened, except when he's on the alien craft.
Oh.
All of that is Hollywood embellishment. Not even the aliens look like the one Travis saw. They changed everything. And the bastards, Travis was involved in all the way through the process of the movie, from the script to he was on set. Well, he met everybody. He met James Garner and all the actors. He was there, right?
I show him at the end of the movie in the credits, like with the crew or meeting.
He's in the movie. He's in the movie as well. He's when the church scene, when Mike Rogers talked to everybody. Remember that scene? And he just confronts everybody for
town.
He's in the church.
Oh, he's in the town meeting. Okay.
Yeah, he's in the town meeting.
Okay.
So, so I wanted to do an illustration that would convey the real story. The actual design of the craft. I wanted to be accurate, and even to the model of the pickup truck they were using in the movie. They used a Dodge truck, but it was really an international truck. So I wanted to do everything correct.
Your artwork has details that are not, they're technical details. Like no one's going to notice what kind of fucking truck they're in, right?
Well, accuracy is so important to a story like this, right?
It's the most important thing because, I mean, if you're accurate, and you get interviewed thousands of times, and you made a mistake, and one of the little details is different in a subsequent version, then people say you're a liar. You're making a lot up.
Yeah.
But Travis' story is so intricate, and it has never, ever changed, ever. And he has passed several polygraph tests. Not only him, but every member of the logging crew, and there were 6 other guys.
Yeah.
They all passed the polygraph. You know the chances for 7 people to all pass the polygraph on the same story? I mean, it's enough to send somebody to the electric chair, you know, on a trial, you know.
Right.
So anyway, I did this illustration, put it out just like Bigfoot a few months earlier.
Now, to be clear, which one is it? Is it the one where the craft is in the distance and he's being sucked up by the light and the other loggers are watching? Or is it the one with Travis on the table?
No, it's that I did that after that.
It was the first one. Okay.
Just the first one.
Right.
And sure enough, it was so accurate that I got I'm not joking. Not even 15 minutes later, I put it out on Facebook. I got a message from Travis's girlfriend.
Wow. Well,
I thought it was a joke at first.
You know what that proves? You know what that proves? And it should prove to you, and I know you're a humble guy, but it proves to me that your art kicks ass. First off, they saw it, and it wasn't just like some bullshit like stick men with, you know, some crayons and shit. It looked fucking real. And you posted it there, hopefully with a watermark so no one's printing it and selling it. And then, you know, 15 minutes later, the guy that you painted is in contact with you.
Yeah, that was so surreal. It was surreal. It was even more surreal than working for Judas Priest. Surreal.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know, surreal. So I got a message from her.
Because of the outrageous story. It's like believing time travel. You know, it's like that. But, you know, the fact that you're interested in this material, and that so much so that you did the research for these art pieces, and next thing you know, you're having dinner with the guy you painted.
With Bigfoot.
Yeah, you're having dinner with Bigfoot. 15 minutes later, you're getting asked to go on a date with Bigfoot.
Bigfoot's going to send you a friend request on Facebook.
Amazing. Amazing shit, dude. Anyway, tell us about them contacting you.
Well, he liked it enough. I mean, Travis has been doing the UFO convention circles for a long time now. Yeah. I mean, he was very adamant to do it for the longest time. And he went to reclusion, actually moved out of Snowflake because of all the harassing and all the people bugging him.
Now, just to be clear, where is Snowflake again?
Arizona.
Arizona, thank you.
Yeah.
Snowflake. How is there a place called Snowflake in Arizona? Like the hottest state in the country, and there's a place called Snowflake.
Maybe he owned a white dog.
It's because of the first settlers of that area were Mormons.
Okay.
There were 2 families that set foot on that area of Arizona. One's were the snows, and the other ones were the flakes. Oh. That's the story.
Really?
Wow, that's clever.
Wow. You learned something on Talk Louder.
That's interesting.
How about that?
So Travis has done the circle of the conventions for the longest time. And there's a lot, he had done thousands of interviews. And the reason he wrote the book was to avoid giving thousands of interviews. I just put out the definitive version, so no one will ever ask me again. That didn't happen, but that was his intention with the book.
Right.
So he grew accustomed of people giving wrong facts, changing the story for the sake of selling news. He grew accustomed to that, and he said, "You know what? There's nothing I can do about that." It just accepted it, that it was beyond his control.
Yeah.
What people choose to, the way people choose to present the story. So whenever somebody is accurate, he will stand out for him, right?
Mhm.
So he saw this illustration, he thought it was accurate enough, and said, "Oh, who's that guy? Who did that?" So he reached out to me and he said, "I want you to do more, because eventually I want to change all the illustrations in my book, and I want you to do it."
Oh,
Wow.
So the second illustration, the one you just mentioned,
Yeah.
I did that just texting back and forth with Travis to get the aliens to look right.
Yeah.
My first attempt wasn't right. He said, "Look, they're too bulky. They were thinner. The necks were thicker, and they were just pointing out different things here and there to make them look more accurate." And I tried also to convey just the sheer terror he had while he was on that table, because when he woke up on the ship, he thought he was at the hospital, right? He was like coming out of it. His vision was blurry. He had a bright light just on top of him, couldn't see what was going on, and he saw like several figures walking around the table and said, "Oh, cool. I'm in a hospital now. Everything is okay," right? And then when he finally comes to, you see this fucking alien head staring at him with eyes as big as a coin, like looking at him like that. And he freaked out, just totally freaked out, jumped back out of the table and just grabbed something behind him. And he grabbed this, I guess, glass cylinder. He didn't know what it was for, some kind of tool they had there, started waving at him. There were 3 aliens, short like children, big heads, big eyes, not the classic grays that people are seeing in movies with dark gray skin and black almond eyes. No, they weren't like that. They had big heads. They were very pale, almost transparent pale, and their eyes had the white part of the eye, and they had iris and a pupil. So
Okay.
but they were huge.
Right.
Huge eyes, right? They wouldn't talk. They just look at him. Mm-hmm. And Travis even pushed one of them. And he said they were so light that the guy just fell into the others. They were like almost weightless, like felt like a marshmallow. That's how he described it. And the 3 guys at the same time raised their arms like that, like, "Hey, dude, chill out." And they left the room and left him alone in this room.
If people go to your websites and see this, how many pieces of Travis's story did you do? And
I have done 3.
what other? You have 3?
Just 3.
Now there's another art piece that you've done that is the cigar shape craft.
Yeah.
Is that related to Travis's story?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's just I did that. I wanted to do a UFO piece.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think there's only one type of UFO. It's a saucer, and that's not true.
No.
There's hundreds of different types,
Yeah.
and the cigar-shaped UFOs are as common as the disc UFOs. So I just wanted to do the generic cigar-shaped UFO.
Sure. Well, I really want people to go to your website, ClaudioBergamin.com.
Come.
Yeah. Please go look at these pieces of art there. The detail is incredible. The stories that go along with the Bigfoot stuff. I know there's more. I know that you have become friends with Bigfoot hunters that actually live in Texas. Is this true?
Yeah, Lyle Blackburn.
Okay.
He's from Texas. He lives near Dallas, I think.
Okay.
And he's one of the most well-known UFO trackers around. He's in a bunch of shows on the Travel Channel, History Channel.
I'm sure that all of us who are fans of this kind of lore know who he is.
You know what, you will like Lyle, because he's also a rocker.
Perfect.
He plays in a band called, what's the name of this band? Ghoul Town.
Oh,
Have
I
you
know
heard of
Ghoul
them?
Town.
I've heard
I've
of
played
them.
gigs with Ghoul Town.
Yeah, he's a singer.
The singer. I bet I've met him before.
Yeah, he's a mustache, very cowboy-like. He always wears a cowboy hat.
Ghoul Town has been around forever.
Yeah, he
long
plays in that band, and he's also friends with King Diamond.
Well,
if you believe that.
That makes sense, because King Diamond used to live in Dallas.
He still lives in Dallas.
Oh, right. Well, he used to be in Carrollton. Then he may be in Plano now. Dallas is big. So I want to throw more things at you. Like, are there any, not limited to album covers? Are there any album covers that you've done by bands not quite as popular as Judas Priest, but maybe that me and Dave have heard of?
Yeah. Well, I worked with Rotablanca. They have been probably a lot of people are not familiar with them here, but they're huge in South America. It's the biggest classic rock band in South America.
Okay.
Their shows are always sold out, and they've been around forever too, since the 80s. It's if I had to compare them with another band, they're kind of like Joe Lynn Turner's Rainbow.
Okay.
That's the style they do. Lots of keyboards, lots of 4x4 fast tracks like Spotlight Kid, that kind of music.
Okay, cool.
So I work with them, and that got me almost as much attention as Judas Priest, especially in South America.
How many covers?
So that's one of the bands.
How many covers have you done for Rotablanca?
I've done one album cover and countless promotional images for them. So, working with Walter is always great. He's a fantastic guitar player. You would like Rotablanca. It's in Spanish, but the music is right up your alley. It's great music. You know? And also, I've worked with a lot of European bands that are popular there, but not here. Like Battle Beast. Battle Beast, they're on the way up. I mean,
I think I've seen some of your pieces for Battle Beast, actually.
Yeah, Battle Beast. I worked recently with the Burning Witches. The Burning Witches.
Schmear. That's Schmear from Destruction.
Yeah, I think he's their manager.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the latest one I did, and he went to all of the charts. I was like, wow. I mean, he got to number 6 on the German charts.
That means
number 1 on the Swiss charts.
Amazing. That means people are seeing your artwork.
Yeah. So that's one. Let me think. Well, I worked with Rob before. Oh, and also one of the most interesting projects I've ever done, and you should check this project too, is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it's not a band, it's a project called Ayreon. Have you ever heard of that?
Spell it.
I don't think so.
It's Ayreon. Ayreon.
It sounds familiar.
Right. Well, it's kind of a cult type of musical project. It's done by a Dutch guy called Arjen Lucassen. Okay. What he does is this just totally crazy rock operas, science fiction rock operas, right? So he's a master composer. I would compare him with John Williams. He's just a genius musician, right?
Yeah.
He recruits the best musicians to play on his records, and also the best singers. Bruce Dickinson has sing on Iron Records, and Biff from Saxon, and Floor Jansen from Nightwish, Lenny Walt from Kingdom Come. He has recruited the singer from Magnum. What was his name?
Don't know.
Well, anyway, so he not only works with the best musicians, but also with amazing singers. And each singer plays a different character on his albums because these are stories, right?
Concept.
Very cosmic, esoterical type of stories,
Wow,
right?
it sounds really cool.
And the music, it's a mix of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a mix of, dude, Aaron is probably around your age. You know, he was a guitar player in the 80s for a band called, I forgot the name. They got some tracks on the radio in the 80s. What was the name of the band?
Uh-oh.
Forgot the name of the band. He had like his hair up in the air and he was wearing like, you know, zebra spandex in the 80s. But now he does this. And for the last record he did, he always gets somebody to do the voiceover.
Yeah.
For the record I worked with him, he got Rutger Hauer. Remember that actor?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
For the latest one, he got John Delancey, the guy who played Q in Star Trek.
Wow.
Okay.
Right?
What's this guy's name? Spell it. A-Y?
No, it's A-R-J-E-N.
A-R-J-E.
It's Arjen, but you pronounce it Arjen. The J is an I in Europe.
What's his last name?
Lucassen. L-U-C-A-S-S.
I got it. Yep, I got it.
What's the band,
Yep,
Jason?
he's got a lot of hair.
Yeah. So anyway, so Arjen did this album with Rutger Hauer, right? And he was about this guy who is preserving cryogenics, and he wakes up like 1,000 years in the future. And the world has changed. All his friends and relatives are dead. And he tried to get used to this new world. So each song is about some weird shit that it's in the future. For instance, there's another one song called, which is my favorite on the record, and I did a great piece of artwork for it. It's called Pink Beetles in a Purple Zeppelin, right? So the song is about this service in the future that if you want your perfect band that doesn't exist, an artificial intelligence will create this band for you. For instance, if you like Iron Maiden and Kiss, this AR will create the perfect blend between Iron Maiden and Kiss and do it for you, right? So, and there's another song about in the future, just committing controlled suicide is normal. Like if somebody doesn't want to live anymore, you can go to a place and get killed. You know? So Arjen has a mind like this big. So I can guarantee you guys will enjoy the records. They're great music, and it's progressive, like a mix of Yes and Dream Theater and Pink Floyd.
Sounds amazing.
Everything on the mix, and it's great music.
So he was in a band called Bodine, Bodine.
Bodine.
Yeah. But that was between 80 and 84. It sounds amazing. The things that you've gotten to do and that you've sort of been able to put your vision into working with artists, singers, and songwriters, and you're a musician yourself. I think that, you know, you were right where you need to be. And I really appreciate all of your art. You're really, really good at what you do. I love the Cassius King cover.
Great.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. And the Judas Priest Firepower cover, you even agreeing that probably be your most popular current work. You know, everyone, that's going to be their starting point when they look you up. I advise everyone to go to www.claudiobergamin.com. And also he has an online store. Do you want to give us that website?
It's easier. It's bergaminart.com.
There you go. And I really appreciate you. Dave, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, Claudia, I just wanted to thank you for joining us today. That was a fascinating story. What a huge accomplishment getting the Cassius King album cover. I mean,
oh,
I'm
thanks,
joking.
Dave.
I've been a fan of Jason since I was a teenager. So
Yeah, well, I'm being silly, but the Cassius King album cover is awesome, and like I said, I saw it earlier before it was released publicly, and I thought, man, that's really cool. And Jason explained some of the details that went into it, and then the Firepower album cover. I mean, what a trophy that is to have on your shelf. So congratulations for that, and I hope it leads to more things for you, because it's a great piece of art on an album that was widely circulated and well reviewed, and people were happy with it. So who knows? Maybe you'll get that phone call from Iron Maiden. I hope you do.
Okay.
And but mainly, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate your background, your perspective, your
Thank
stories.
you.
It's
Thank you
been
for having me.
fascinating.
Hey,
Absolutely.
let's do a full Kiss show someday.
Yeah, we should.
We do a Kiss Nerd episode.
Yes,
You know,
please.
Yeah.
Dave, he would be really good to have on it because he has all the insight on the album cover artists.
Yeah,
That's another thing I wanna pitch for you guys before we go to YouTube and look for my show with Dennis Wallach. He was the art designer for Kiss throughout the classic years from 1974 to 1987.
And what's the
So he
name?
did most of the classic album
What is your
covers.
YouTube show called?
It's called The Making of the Kiss Album Artwork. Very self-explanatory.
Great.
You know?
Great.
So each episode is about one album cover, and we discuss it at length. So any Kiss fan will enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you for being here today, Claudio.
Yeah, Claudio, thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, our guest today, Claudio Bergamin, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, signing out for another episode of the Talk Louder podcast.